Hi guys, it's Amelia, but not the pilot, just Amelia, and I am currently a master's student studying art history at the University of St. Andrews, and I'm starting my dissertation. I thought I would make a little vlog of my struggles throughout the process of researching and writing for a dissertation at a master's level in the UK. So join me to give you a little context on how my school does dissertation stuff and also how I'm approaching it and what my topic is. I'm going to start off with that and then get into like a little vlog section where you could see me probably, I'm going to predict, slowly lose my mind as I write a massive paper for 3 months in the summer instead of going outside. So to start, I'm in the MLitt art history program at University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and I applied, I got in. I think I have another video about that whole process. I also have a bunch of other videos about St. Andrews if you are considering going here, talking about social life and all that, so please go check those out. So the way St. Andrews works dissertation-wise, from my understanding, is most of the programs you can choose your own topic, whatever you want to write about, unless you are like a sciencey type of dissertation. I have a lot of different friends in different majors here, and so I know I have a like comp sci statistics friend, and she was given a bunch of different options, and then she got to choose which one she wanted to do, apply for it, and then either get accepted or not. And so that was like, this is the project, it's under this supervisor, apply for it and tell me why you want to do it. Where the art history program is a little different, where I have to come up with my completely own topic and find a supervisor that will supervise me, and you don't really get rejected for the most part in my understanding. I could have chosen whatever I wanted, but I did need to find a supervisor that's like vaguely related to what I'm doing so that they could accurately advise me and help me out. Another sort of strange thing, in my opinion, that St. Andrews doesn't do, I had like no specialization. I had no classes on specifically what I'm interested in. They only had general classes on art history themes. And then they had a couple other classes that were a bit more specific that I got to take that happened to be related to what I do, but a lot of my friends had no classes that were related to their subject. So I specifically ended up specializing in like medieval things. That's just what I really like. I really love medieval art history, specifically manuscripts, specifically bestiaries, whatever you want to call them, specifically cartography and maps, like art, science, that type of stuff. And also medieval like Christianity, I think is really weird. So that's like what I am focusing on, especially like queering, which is like queer reading, or like feminism views, applying it to medieval times. A lot of my friends are into like Baroque art or minimalism or Parisian architecture or something, and didn't have a specific class that they could take, so they just took whatever they wanted. So I feel a little bit lucky that I was able to get sort of a broad teaching, I guess, rather than just researching everything myself, although the classes weren't that specific to what I ended up doing. Applying for here, I did not have to have a dissertation topic. I just applied. And then you have to figure that out later. You don't start the dissertation stuff until February, which is also a little wild to me. I thought we were going to start it like the second we got here. They literally didn't want us thinking about it until February. So whatever. To be realistic, you really only have 3 months to work on the dissertation, because your first semester you're just spent doing your schoolwork. You can do external research, but there's no one like pushing you to do it. So it's fully self-motivated. And then my second spring semester, we also really didn't have time to do things, and we're not told to do things. We had a very minimal thing we had to hand in February, and then again May 8th. So I thought I was going to be doing something with bestiaries for my dissertation, but I ended up instead doing something more specific and niche, because I realized that it's an area of study that hasn't really been fully explored. So I'm hoping maybe by writing something in this field that I will be able to continue doing research because I like researching. I would prefer not to just go into the workforce. I would love to do like academic workforce stuff, you know? So I'm looking at cartography because cartography is like widely sort of unstudied in art history. So I'm doing sea monsters on maps, specifically in Scotland, specifically in, I think it's 1580 to 1700 it's a very small range. How did I find this topic? I was auditing a class on early modern art, and she was talking about how art science is very unstudied, and I love maps. I love pirate stuff. In my head, that's what this is. Also, I love beasts, and there's a lot of weird little animal creatures on maps, so that's what I ended up doing. And then you have to narrow it down a lot, and I ended up just choosing Scotland, because that's where I am right now, and that's what I'm interested in. I mostly do medieval stuff for like Great Britain, Isles type of area. I narrowed down the years by, I would love to stay in medieval, but there's not a lot of medieval maps. It's more in the early modern period. So medieval era sort of ends in the 1500s, 1600s, depends on who you talk to. So that's when early modern / Renaissance starts. And I just ended up looking up maps, trying to find maps until I found ones that actually had sea monsters on it, because not all of them do. And that's how I ended up getting my range, because I only found 10 and that's the range that they're in. So that's what I'm doing. And I am sort of interested in this period because it is a bit of a like transitional period from medieval into early modern as we label them, but obviously people didn't just like randomly modernize overnight. So it's a transitionary phase, which I think is interesting. I wanted to discuss a couple of the like prompts and questions that I personally use to help me sort of narrow down and like consider how to find a dissertation topic. So I found a couple of these like little things you could fill out online. So I have 3 different forms that I found to help you like narrow things down and like define your dissertation topic. So the first one is the W's. So it's just the 6 W questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. You're supposed to ask yourself those questions and apply them to your topic, right? This one is 9 questions. What is your problems faced, your problems overcome, the motives, the effects on a group, the members of that group, the group affected, the group benefited, and the group responsible for paid for. So I'll put these questions down below as well, just so you could use them if you need to. And then the third model that I found is called the Socraper model. It's just an acronym, and the acronym stands for similarities, opposites, contrasts, relationships, anthropomorphisms, and personifications, and then repetition. So I'm just like sort of thinking about those as I was trying to narrow things down, and they sort of helped. I didn't really stick to them too much, but they did like help me think about like what I need to narrow things down, because you always have to narrow it down further than you think. So I'm doing sea monsters on maps, and the only deadlines we have for the MLitt at St. Andrews is your first deadline is February 5th, I think it was. These dates are probably going to change each year, but this was just what it was for me in 2023. February 5th, we had to hand in a title that we're thinking, like what the topic title is. And then we had to find an advisor, but they didn't have to be confirmed to be our advisor yet. So you had to approach one of the professors, be like, hey, would you want to work on this with me? They said yes or no. And then I also had to hand in a bibliography of just 10 things that I'm thinking of looking at. So it's very easy, very low key, but it did put everyone into a panic. And then the next deadline was like April 28th, 29th. We had to do this symposium thing, which was like we had to make a little presentation, very low key, and present it to everyone in our class. This was ungraded. It was just to like help us get feedback and also start us to get like thinking about our thesis more and our dissertation. So we just had to like make a little PowerPoint that was like, these are the images I'm looking at, this is like the thesis I think I'm gonna do, this is the questions I'm asking, like those type of things. Delicious. Next deadline is May 8th, which was we just had to like finalize our title, which I think does not make sense because I always name things at the end of when I'm done with things, because I feel like I still don't really know what my thesis is and what I'm doing exactly, but handed in a title already, I guess, so I hope that stays the same. And then the final deadline is August 15th, which is when the dissertation is due. To my knowledge, all the dissertations are all due the same day. So like no matter what major you are, they're all due August 15th, at least this year. So like mid-August is when they're due. And I don't have to defend my thesis. That's not like a thing here. I'm not really sure if that's the standard for art history or not, or what's going on with that. But I do know one of my friends is astrophysics and she has to defend her paper. And also my requirements, I have to write 15,000 words and I only have a margin of 5%. So I could either go over 5%, under 5%. You gotta like stay in that range of the 15,000. And they're very strict about that here. And then my bibliography doesn't count for word count, but your citations do. So when you do like the little tiny one, the footnote, that counts as word count. So not too bad. And then the aim is to have like 3 chapters of your thesis. So I'm essentially writing like 3 4,000 word essays and then an intro and a closing. Like that's the deal. So I'm excited. However, I do know some different, however, that's the art history requirements, and I do know the other post-grad dissertation requirements are completely different. One of my friends, I think, has to write 20 pages or something like that. Or because they have like graphs and things in theirs, so it's like a completely different requirement. Probably not 20, I think it's 40. I don't know. They have to write a certain amount of pages, so it's not word count, it's like how many pages or things you have. So that's what I know about dissertation stuff here at St. Andrews. And now I'm gonna get into my thoughts and feelings as of right now, May 11th. So as of right now, I'm looking at a bunch of sea monsters on maps. I originally thought my essay was going to be structured as like one chapter on like common monsters. So I'd talk about like the whale, kraken type of vibe, like sea serpent, dragon, and then like mermaid sirens maybe. And that would be one essay. And then I was thinking of talking about the next essay part would be like location, so where they are on maps, if those correspond, if they're close to the shore or more in the ocean, if there's any rivers or lakes, and that type of stuff. And then I thought my third thing would be about like the use of the maps or the books that these are found in, like how are they used? Are these for like rich people, were they commissioned, or are these like working maps and stuff like that? However, as I've gotten into this, I've discovered that's definitely not what my structure is going to be at all. I have finally found the like items that I'm using. I actually did a paper last semester for a different class about whales in medieval bestiaries, and they showed, and I found like 76, which is sort of crazy. So 76 different pages that had whale representations on them from the medieval era. And so I did this whole paper on it. I thought it was really interesting. I'm still sort of researching stuff like that because I'm just interested in it. And so I think I'm going to do something with that in this, because as I've been looking for maps, I only found about 10 that are in the Scottish area. They're either a full map of like Great Britain Isle type of island, whatever it's called, and then, or they're like a smaller area like the Edinburgh and St. Andrews Fife area, or the like Orkney Isles and or Skye top area. So I think that's sort of interesting, and they also aren't really monster-y looking, they're just sort of big fish. And so my current thought, which I have no proof for, and I can't find any information on it, so we'll see how this goes. My current thought is that big fish are whales, because in all my medieval manuscript things, they draw whales like big fish, just because like the game of telephone, when some fisherman is like, oh my god, it was like this huge fish, so then the illustrator just drew a big fish. Like, they don't know what a whale looks like, they've never seen one. And so maybe talking about like the big fish concept and how a lot of whales were represented as big fish, but also sort of like monster-esque. They're also like green and red, usually, the little drawings, which I think is wild, very exciting, so maybe talk about that. My other thought is that they're represented as big fish because maybe that is like a fishing area. So there's a lot of fish known to be in that area. And they're obviously not going to draw little tiny fish because you wouldn't be able to see it on the map. So that's my thought on one chapter. I might do an essay on big fish. And then my other thought was to do another chapter on the boats. So a lot of medieval maps also have like little fishing boats and like pirate ship-esque, like the galleons and frigates and stuff on the map as well. And so I'm researching a little bit into that and maybe thinking about discussing those, their placement, what type of ships they are, and also relating that back to the medieval bestiaries that I was talking about earlier, because those often had a little boat as well as a fish. And I think they're interesting because the boat size is like the same size as the fish whale. Like they're the same size, which I think is very interesting. In the bestiaries, but also on the maps, they're like the same size. And I think that's probably for visibility purposes, but also maybe not, don't know. That's sort of the fun part of working with like medieval and early modern stuff is like we just don't know, and we probably won't know because we can't go back in time and talk to these people unless we find like actual written script of them talking about this, which is very uncommon. So that's what I'm thinking about right now, and then I'm a little stressed because I don't know what to write in a third chapter. I also don't know how to link all these together or what the hell I'm proving. I don't know. So that's where I'm at. And it's May 11th. My original plan was to have the first chapter done by the end of the month, but I don't think that's going to happen because that's in 20 days. So I'm just going to continue reading random books and hoping they give me more research answers and stuff. I don't know. I'm also currently having problems finding sources because all the questions I have, literally apparently no one's researched before. So I have 0 answers, which is great from a like, wow, you're doing new research perspective, but bad from a I feel like I'm just floundering out here. I don't know what's going on. But I am excited. I hope it goes well. We'll see how this goes. I'm also stressing myself out because I have about a bajillion different little excursions planned because I want to keep myself busy so I don't get like homesick and bored. So I have little plans for all the weekends, but then all these weekend plans are just like, I have no downtime because I'll be studying like all day, every day, all week. And then the weekend comes and I'm traveling and I'm going and I'm doing things. So I'm a bit stressed. This summer is going to be absolutely nuts. I would also really love to go home. At this point, this is like the longest I've ever been away from home, and I'm not doing well. I think we've been about 4 months now away from my family, so not ideal. I'm also stressing myself out because I'm really trying to write another paper on a completely different topic for fun. Never did I think I would say something like that, but here we are. So that's what's going on now. I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to try to do like a weekly catch up about my struggles writing this paper and like update you. So I'll see you in a week. It is May 19th, so it's been another week since I last checked in. I'm actually really excited this week. I'm finally back in the study groove and things are happening. It's gonna be such a freaking busy summer, but I digress. Monday, I went into Edinburgh to go to the National Library of Scotland, which is in Edinburgh, to go look at their map collections because all of the 9 maps that I'm using for my dissertation are all there. I did that on purpose. I have a library card, so you had to get a library card, which you just like show that you have proof of residency here and they give it to you for free. And then I booked an appointment and booked the maps that I wanted to see, and then you just like show up at your time slot and they bring them all out for you. Very cool. It actually took me 2 full hours to look at all 9 of them, which was it's crazy. I didn't think I would be there that long. But it was very cool. I got to look through the entire Blow Atlas, Volume 6. If y'all don't know what that is, it looks like this. It's just an atlas of maps. I think it's written in Latin. I don't really remember, but I didn't read it. I just like flipped through and like found all the maps and like took some pictures and notes and stuff. But very cool thing that I think I've discovered, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. So that's the big takeaway from this dissertation. But something that I found that I'm very excited about is I found more of these little fishing boats that look like this all over the Below Atlas. There's like so many of them. There's not a lot of fish or sea monsters in the Below Atlas. He does have a couple, but he has a ton of boats. And these ones are the ones I'm like most interested in because to me, I think they look a lot like this type of boat, which I was researching last semester, which is found in a lot of bestiaries. I still don't really know how to say it. I've heard people say both. Anyway, it's in a lot of bestiaries. I'm sort of interested in the fact that the mast is falling over and that they're like pulling on it. And I'm interested about whether or not the mast was knocked over because the whale hit it or something like that. Or if it's a type of boat that has a mast that they would like collapse when they were not using it, I guess. Like, I guess they were docked and then they would put it down. And then when they wanted to move, they put it back up, is what I think. And I sort of had that confirmed for me from this. So that's pretty cool. Because if you look at this one, it sort of looks like a 3-stage thing, right? 1, 2, 3. So obviously it's a fishing boat, you can see here. And then it's like, looks like the same type of like Viking style boat. And I actually also this week was able to get a library book at my school library through interlibrary loan because my school doesn't have anything on this topic. So it's finally, one of my books came in, so I went to go pick it up and I read it all this week, and it actually confirmed that and said that this is a Viking tradition style boat, and people aren't really sure why, but we have like sort of proof that there's like notches in the masts, and they used to take down the masts for some reason and then put them back up. So I'm very excited about that I've made that connection and found that. Don't really think this is actually something that like exciting, but for me, I'm excited that I made this connection. So I might be writing about that in my dissertation. So I did that. I finished 2 of my textbooks this week. So we're back on track. Didn't have a ton of days researching this week because I was in Edinburgh on Monday, and then all day Tuesday I was volunteering at the museum, and then I only had Wednesday, Thursday to do work because this weekend one of my friends is here, so I'm visiting her in Edinburgh. But I'm excited. I have a lot of questions still, slowly getting some answers. I found the name of the type of ship. It's called like a Stuvistor or something. I already don't remember, but I wrote it down, so that's what matters. That's all I have this week. I still have no thesis and no idea of how I'm organizing my dissertation. Great. I forgot to film last week. So that's honestly already, that's how we're going with this dissertation. But today's June 4th. And I need to have my first chapter, the first 4,000 words, done by Friday the 9th. Because I am going on a trip. And I realized that I've planned my summer very poorly. Not on purpose, this is just how it worked out. I thought I was gonna be bored, guys. I thought I was gonna have so much time to my dissertation that I was just gonna be like milling around looking for stuff to do. But nope, I over-prepared. I over-planned my summer, as I usually do. No one's surprised. And so the entire month of June, I'm pretty much unavailable to do any dissertation work. Just because, like, I mean, I could bring my laptop on these little trips that I'm doing, but I know myself, and I know there's no point. So I'm not going to do that. But I'm a little stressed, you could say. Just a little bit. However, I am making good progress. I'm using NaNoWrimo to track my writing because I like statistics. However, I will say that NaNoWrimo is a little bit like they're being a little petty, spitting in my face a little bit because the statistics they're giving me are not funny. They're very upsetting. Let me show you what I mean. So if you don't know what NaNoWrimo is, it's National Novel Writing Month. That's what it stands for. And you're supposed to do it in November. Or maybe it stands for November. Anyway, you're supposed to write a book in 1 month. That's like what you're supposed to use this website for. You could also like log things, whatever. So I've made like, this is the title of the project. This is the challenge I'm currently doing is chapter 1 by June 10th, right? I have to write 4,000 words. I've done 2,786 so far.
this is how many I need to do per day. This is incorrect because I haven't written anything yet today. I've written 3 days in a row. And then it has like all your little statistics stuff going on, which is very exciting. And then it's like, oh, you write best in the morning. And like, here's a little chart. And then we have here, it says I'm not gonna be done till August for these 4,000 words. So I'm a little screwed. Like, okay. And it says I wrote 20 words per day. That's not correct. Like, that's a joke, right? That must be a joke. I'm writing more than 20 words per day. Anyway. Yeah, so I'm tracking my stuff on here. I also recommend doing this if you want, just because it's like a nice way to see that you are making progress. I like to see the little statistic things. I love having a little gold star moment, you know? And it gives you like little badges when you like complete stuff. I don't know, whatever. I love it. So I've been logging my stuff on there. I've been trying to do like 200-ish words a day, preferably 500 a day, but that's just sort of unrealistic for me. It is going insanely slow. I'm actually sort of surprised. I feel like writing, usually I'm a very much like, I have too many things to say and I just like word dump, and then I have to like cut everything down. That's usually how I write stuff. But I am just struggling to even write a sentence. It's going rough. So I'm a little nervous about that. And I think it's because like mentally I'm holding myself back a little bit because I'm a bit nervous about how big of a deal this feels like. But I also feel like I haven't researched as much as my other things. Like my previous essays, I researched so much that when it finally got time to writing, I had too much to say, even like unrelated things, but I wrote it all out first and then you edit it down. And so just right now it's like I researched as much as I could, but the fact that I'm doing my dissertation in such a field that's like not well researched, I'm struggling to find things to read. So that's also stressing me out. So it's going great. I think I finally have my outline, my structure for the whole dissertation. I emailed my advisor and she never responded, so that's like not super great. I'm a little upset. Although I did email her on a Friday, so maybe she was just unavailable. But today's Sunday, and my plan for today is in the next 4 hours to write 1,300 words. Is that doable? Probably not, but I'm gonna try anyway, because I want to finish like my first draft essentially today. So all this upcoming week, I'll edit it and hopefully it'll be good enough to like turn in on Friday. That's like my plan, because I would like to give my advisor like a finished piece, sort of, hoping that she'll be able to be like, like this was pretty good. I would give it like a 14 out of 20. But like if you do these things, it'll make it a 16 or something like that, you know? That's what I'm hoping to do. Is that what's gonna happen? Maybe. We're in it together, guys. Also, I've broken into my stash of Cheez-Its that I import from home. So if you could tell, that's where I'm at right now. I'm not doing well. And I've had like 8 bajillion cups of tea today and it's not helping, but I need to stop talking to you and get into it. So I'll see ya. It's also really nice outside today, and I haven't been outside in like 3 days because I've just been sitting in my bed working on this. It's officially the last week of my post-grad experience at St. Andrews. It's so sad. I'm basically done with my dissertation, so now I'm just sort of like obsessively reading it over and trying not to touch it too much. But yeah, I'm just sort of chilling out. It's actually hot this week. This is probably the first week it's ever been hot all summer here in Scotland. And by hot, I mean it's just reaching 19 degrees Celsius today, which I want to say is like 83. That was a guess. But this week I'm mostly just like formatting my dissertation. It's currently 99 pages, which is
crazy. And I'm just gonna take you with me on my move out experience and dissertation final days.
I did it. It's 10:48, August 13th. I'm done.
I'm panicking, so I decided to film the end. I'm submitting my dissertation. Oh god, okay. I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack or cry, and I'm not really sure which it is. Maybe both. Oh my god, it's taking forever to upload. Where did it go? I'm done. Guess who forgot to film an outro as always? That's right, it's your boy. So, I just wanted to give my final thoughts on the dissertation process, how I fared. My results, actually, I have them now. I've also graduated by now, so I did actually film a outro thing a while ago, but I deleted it by accident. So here we are. So I submitted my dissertation on August 15th, and then I found out my results around September, like mid-September, end of September. I found out my results like end of September-ish, I think, if I remember correctly. And the way St. Andrews Art History Department does it, at least, your professor, your supervisor reads it, and then one other random professor reads it, and then they both decide their grade for it, and they have to come to a decision together on what grade to give you. So either they like average the two, or they argue back and forth until they decide what grade to give you. It's out of 20, which is a ridiculous system that does not make sense, but whatever. And then they both give you like this little paragraph of feedback, really not that much feedback, so it's not super useful, but whatever. So I did end up writing my dissertation with 3 different chapters. So my first chapter was on medieval bestiaries' influence on sea monster depictions on cartography of the early modern ages. That was the first chapter, so sort of setting things up. And then my second chapter was explanation of why I thought that and how I feel like they were directly correlated, and some conclusions about what I think it meant to have sea monsters on maps, because I mostly use the Blow Atlas, which I'm actually trying to do a PhD. I'm proposing some PhD proposals soon, so hopefully that goes well. I mostly focused on the Blow Atlas, which is a early modern atlas that's very famous from the time, made in Amsterdam. I was only looking at the Scottish volumes though, which is it's a half of one of the volumes, but I was looking at multiple copies of it because they're all slightly different because they were hand colored and whatnot. Anyway, that's too much information for you, I get it. I'm trying to like go really quick. So I discussed why I thought these sea monsters were on these maps, because not every map in the atlas had a sea monster. Not every map from that time period had sea monsters. Sea monsters were sort of seen as like a decorative element, but I sort of felt like if you're spending all this money, like there's probably more to it. And yes, but there's also the factor of like these big atlases were sort of like a coffee table book. Like they weren't particularly used by seafaring people. They're used by like rich people to show off their money in their house and like learn about the world. So I talked about that, but I also talked about like specifically maps of Scotland using this atlas, but also a handful of other maps that I had found. They all depicted sea monsters in like Scottish waters and the North Sea, basically. And so I was sort of concluding that there's a tradition of depicting sea monsters in the North Sea, and I think it's related to whaling and or fishing, and that a lot of these sea monsters do look very like fish-shaped. Like they're not like serpents, they're more just like big fish. And so I talked about like the big fish phenomena, and why I thought the big fish represents either a whale, because how else do you describe a whale? It looks like a big fish. Or they would draw one big fish monster, to represent fishing for that whole area, because you wouldn't draw a bunch of tiny little fish, because then you wouldn't be able to see that on the map. The map is too big that it would just be like little dots. Like, how would you tell fishing is there? So they would just put one big fish. So that was what I was discussing. Obviously, this isn't like proven things. These are my thoughts backed up with like factual stuff and other art historical research. So that was the basis of my second chapter. And then my third chapter was like a completely different random topic, where I focused on those little boats that I talked about earlier. I was really interested in why there was like random little fishing boats depicted on these maps, because a lot of times the boats that were depicted on the maps were like the newest technology, and these fishing boats are not new technology. They're very, very old, particularly like Norwegian, Scandinavian inventions almost. So I was like, why do they even have fishing boats on this? Especially since these maps are used by like rich people. Why do they have these like little seafaring vessels on here that are like very plain looking? They don't even look like fancy cool. So I was talking about that, and why I think this like type of boat with the collapsible mast was like important, and how it worked. So that was my final chapter. So that was my dissertation. I liked it. I had a good time writing dissertations. I know a lot of my friends were struggling and not happy, but I was thriving. I love researching. I was like learning all my little things about sea monsters and boats. I was having a good little time. Writing obviously was not super fun. I was struggling a lot of days, but there was never times where I was just like absolutely done with doing this. I was just like, okay, we gotta work around it. We gotta figure it out, you know, like this little puzzle. So I had a really good time, and I did finish it on time, finished it a little early, so that was also great. But I will say there is definitely like a mental hurdle you have to get past of like trying to reach certain numbers by certain days and whatnot. So yeah, but I had a great time. And so I guess I found out my results about a month-ish later, a month and a half. I think I found out before October, or at least at the beginning of October. What my grade was, which I got a 15 out of 20, which is exciting because that was like a pretty high grade for me. And the St. Andrews Art History department grades really harshly, so that was actually a pretty good grade, so I was really excited about it. It wasn't what I was expecting, and because I'm sort of crazy, and I was like, I'm gonna get a 17, which was like really high. Like that's like not many people were getting 17s at all. Which I didn't, but I was really like happy with the 15. The 15 is, I'm still passing with merit, which is like above normal passing. I don't know. So that was exciting. So I did that, and I got some feedback that basically like my third chapter was the best, which is interesting to me because I thought my second one is the most interesting, but my first one was written the best because that's the one that my professor worked on with me. But I don't know. I will say I was sort of annoyed with how the like supervision works at St. Andrews. I love my supervisor. She was so nice and so helpful and like really good supervisor. But the way St. Andrews Art History supervision worked was that you get one supervisor, and that supervisor has to meet with you 3 times at minimum. They could meet more if you want. And we met a good amount of times. It was really helpful. She actually told me about this like London conference that I ended up going to, and she really encouraged me to go do things. I got a grant to go visit some of the things in London, which was really cool. And we still keep in touch, so she was super nice and really helpful and gave a lot of good feedback. But the rule in our art history department was that you can only submit 1 chapter to your professor to like read. And so I just did my first chapter because I like didn't know what else to do. I was writing these in order, so that was like the only way I was able to do it. I wrote the intro and the first chapter first, so I gave her those, and she gave me a bunch of feedback, which was really great and really helpful, and I edited a ton of stuff. But I wish she was able to read the other chapters because I don't really know that they all flowed, and clearly my a lot of the advice that I feel like I got in my feedback at the end like might have been fixed if I had more supervision. Like I don't understand why for some reason the St. Andrews like art department, the way they do it is your supervisor is also your grader, and that's why they're not allowed to read your whole thing, because then like why would they not give you a really great grade if they helped you do all of this, you know?
So I think it would have been more helpful. I hope St. Andrews changes that in the future, that your supervisor is separate, and just supervises you, does not grade it as well. She was super nice, and I feel like I did really well, so I was really excited about it, and I'm hoping that I could like edit these and maybe publish them as like smaller articles somewhere, so we'll see. I will also say I'm really glad that I started working on it so early, because I feel like a lot of my friends and classmates were left sort of floundering since St. Andrews didn't really have like a structure to their dissertation thing. It was sort of just like, okay, go write it now. Like there was no real guideline. We didn't have any dates set, which sort of sucked. But I was also like getting advice from my friends who had different supervisors, and their supervisors were saying different things. So like one of my friend's supervisors said to write 500 words every day, like that's what you should do. I didn't do that. I still finished. It worked out. But I really had to work with like my own pace, like how I write. Like I knew like some days I was able to spit out like 1,000 words in one sitting, but there was other days where like I really could only do 200 words, and I just had to be okay with that and then go research somewhere else and like work on something else. I started trying to figure out what my topic was pretty much as soon as I got there. So I just started reading a bunch of random things in my free time, but I was using a lot of those like research I was doing in my free time to like influence my essays in class. So your essays in class are also pretty like open, you could do whatever you want. So I was writing my class essays about bestiaries and about whales and about medieval religion, which didn't ending up in my dissertation, but so then I had that like broad background around my topic, and then I was able to narrow down what I was interested and the areas that are needed to be researched about. In general, when you are trying to figure out your dissertation topic, my biggest advice for you is to choose an area you're really interested in. I would suggest one that's less like researched and studied. It just makes things easier, but choose something that you're really interested in that you can spend an entire 3 months looking at nonstop, because that's really important. And then just reading absolutely everything you possibly can on that subject. I got a lot of positive feedback on my bibliographies. My bibliographies throughout the entire semester and on my dissertation were really, really long. They were really big because I was literally just reading anything and everything. I would read an article, and then at the end of the article, I would look through the sources that person used and read those as well. Only the ones that I thought were interesting. Or I would just go down random rabbit holes just because. So I learned all these random things, and then from there I was able to see like, oh, well, I have this question about this. It doesn't seem like anyone's talking about that. Let me go research that. So to figure out a dissertation, choose a topic and then find the holes in that research. Find the places that people aren't really researching, and then that's what you could research. But I will also say, art history-wise, I guess this is in general, to narrow down your topic a lot. So first start with a thing. So I did cartography, medieval bestiaries, right? That was like my overarching thing. And then I chose a location, Scotland, because that's where I was. I just happened to work out. It actually worked out really well that I ended up focusing on like Scotland, North Sea. It made a lot of sense. I did actually have reasoning more than just like, I happen to be living in Scotland. I ended up choosing it because there's some really famous maps of the North Sea with Norway and Iceland and stuff, with like just a ton of random monsters in the ocean. Like it's absolutely filled. And so I used that in my argument for why I had chosen Scotland and the North Sea in general, and discussed that a lot. But I chose an area and then narrow it down even further by choosing a time period, which I ended up choosing the time period from my artworks that I chose. Another way to narrow down your artworks, because you shouldn't have a crazy amount. I actually probably had too many, but that's like sort of how mine had to go, because the Blow Atlas itself is 11 volumes, and then each volume has like 50 maps in it, and I just sort of had to talk about it as like a whole, so I just had to. But anyway, I probably could have made the entire argument just using the Blow Atlas, but I was trying to show that more broadly people at the time were using other maps. But anyway, what I ended up doing was I chose a random museum. I ended up choosing the National Library of Scotland, which is in Edinburgh, which I was able to visit, which I think is super key if you're doing an art history dissertation, that you could actually visit your artworks in person and see them, because then you could
like talk about that for future job like it's very good on your resume that you physically went to go look at the artwork for hours at a time, and are involved in their archives and whatnot. So I ended up limiting myself to just the National Library of Scotland. I went there, I went through their entire digital archive online and chose all these maps, found all these maps. I found like a good amount, like 12 to 20, I would say, is like a good amount. Even less is probably better, but I found about 20 for the project I was doing. It made more sense to have like representation to show like, oh no, this is a thing. It's not just like 2 maps that happen like this. So I had, 12 to 20 maps of Scotland that were in the National Library of Scotland that I was able to go visit. And so I went and visited them, and then I did more research into the Below Atlas and was able to go visit other copies of it in London, and also find more online and compare. So that's how I chose my time period, because the set of maps that I had were within, I think it was 1580 to 1700s, which was like the perfect little time period that I wanted. And that's how I did it. So that was my dissertation experience, and then we graduated in November 28th and 29th this past year, which I made a graduation vlog if you'd like to go check it out. But that will be the conclusion of my St. Andrews vlogs, because I now no longer go there. If you want to see more about my time at St. Andrews, I made a ton of vlogs about my time there, doing all different things and whatnot. So I will link the playlist up here, but also there's a bunch of different vlogs. They're all down in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about doing your own dissertation or doing an art history dissertation, a St. Andrews dissertation, let me know down below. I will try my best to answer them. Obviously, art history dissertation at St. Andrews is very different from other dissertations, and St. Andrews also does dissertations differently from other schools, but in the end, we're all just writing a big paper. So, thank you for watching. Bye!